welcome to FLX Weekly here on FingerLakes1.com. I'm Jim Sinicropi inside the FingerLakes1.com studios. It is Wednesday, October 25th, 2023, and today we are joined by Paul King. He is the head winemaker and distiller from 6 Mile Creek Vineyards in Ithaca, and of course, Katherine Chase, the Cayuga Lake Wine Trail director, is here as well. It's another edition of Wine Wednesday here on FLX Weekly. As you can see, we've got some beverages prepared for tasting today. We're going to learn about 6 Mile Creek in Ithaca and Paul's history and how they do things down there. So it should be a good show. Stick around. Today's episode is sponsored by Pine Point Medical. Their mission is to provide you with personalized high-quality care and are dedicated to improving your health through evidence-based medicine and treatment. Do you need a doctor who puts you first? Try an independent physician-owned practice. Schedule your appointment at pinepointmed.com or in person at their office in Lansing. Again, that's pinepointmed.com. And also, Empower Skin and Scalp Spa. Empower Skin and Scalp Spa on Preemption Road in Geneva is locally owned and operated by New York licensed esthetician Jessica Lahr, offering hydrofacial treatments, facial treatments, makeup services, dermaplane facials, spray tanning services, and scalp treatments. Call 315-291-9111 or book online at empowerspany.com. Katherine, welcome back.
Thank you. That was a mouthful you had there.
No, I know it's a lot.
Esthetician's a hard word to say.
It's a good thing we did that before we sampled our wine and beverages today. But another edition of Wine Wednesday, that means that it's the end of the month. This is the last weekend of October coming up. And, of course, it's a busy time at wineries on Cayuga Lake and throughout the Finger Lakes. So I'm real excited to welcome you, Paul, to the studio. Welcome.
Hello, hello.
Winemaker and distiller at 6 Mile Creek. So there's some similarities and differences between, I suppose, winemaking and making spirits. Can you just touch quickly on some of the differences?
Yes. Well, when you're working with wine, you're working with fresh fruit usually, and so the process is actually a little more involved, I think, in the winemaking end. You'll start in the northern hemisphere. You'll start now in the fall. And the winemaking really isn't finished until the following spring or summer, and then you're bottle aging. With distillates, a lot of times it's much quicker. If you have the basic product, in this case it's wine, that you're going to distill, it's a quicker process. And so you distill 2, 3, 4, 5 times. You have formulas for liqueurs like we're going to try. And it's something you can do year-round. So we think about winemaking as a longer process and something that happens typically once a year.
Seasonally,
and the distilling is a quicker process, and you can do it all the time. You can do it routinely, weekly.
You can do it on demand even.
On demand.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, that's what they do. They
we're sold
upstairs,
out. Yeah.
We're out of vodka. Paul, can you make some more vodka? Yep, I can do
Gotcha.
that.
Okay. Well, before we get into tasting some of the products from 6 Mile Creek, you've been there now for 30 years.
Yeah.
Just give us a little personal history and what got you there 30 years ago and what's happened during those 30 years.
Okay. Yeah, I like to do that. Before I joined 6 Mile Creek, I was an environmental biologist at Boyce Thompson Institute for Plant Research at Cornell, and doing air pollution research. They invited me to come over to look at the diseases on the grapevines initially, and that was my first interaction. It was like, oh, okay, I'll come help you. And happened to be around the harvest season, and so they wanted to know if I could help them harvest. I said, sure. And about a week later, crusher distemper broke, and the vineyard manager at the time asked me, he says, he knew I was a little good with my hands. He said, do you want to help me fix this crusher distemper because I have grapes to crush?
And this had to be like the early 90s, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Very early 90s.
Gotcha.
I'll help you do that. So you can see an affliction that I have, I think, is if it sounds interesting to me, I can't say no. and the rest is history. The owner, winemaker at the time, Roger Battistella, said, do you want to work? And I worked part-time for 10 years and then full-time after that.
And there's been change in ownership over those?
Change in ownership 6 or 7 years ago. Mark and Amy Renaudin bought the winery, and as soon as that decision was made, he looked at me and said, do you want to make the wine? We kind of need a winemaker. And I said, sure. I can't retire yet. I'd be happy to stay on. And so that's kind of what happened. Yeah.
And those owners, they are New York State, upstate residents, but not Finger Lakes natives, right? They kind
Yeah,
of,
originally from the Tug Hill Plateau area, Lowville, Watertown,
Yep.
that way. Yes, yes.
So now you decide you're going to be a winemaker. Did you have to become a winemaker? Like, you obviously had some of the basic skills with your background, but like, what was that like from actually saying, okay, now I got to make the wine, I got to become good at this craft? Like,
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I mean, I think these days people take two routes or maybe a blend. You either go to school for it or you apprentice. And my route was mostly apprenticing under Roger, and a lot of I brought something to the suite of skills, being a biologist, environmental biologist. So I was very familiar with lab work, which there's a fair amount of in winemaking. So pH meters and other sorts of things, and the math that goes along with it. There's not a lot, but I sort of brought that and a real desire to make wine. It sounded great. I loved wine. I was making a little wine at home, and so that was kind of fun. And now I got to see the bones of it.
make some
And
real wine.
So yeah, a little bit of both, but mostly apprenticing for me.
Yeah, that's interesting. A scientific background. Nowadays, there are degree programs specifically for winemaking, where that wasn't so much the case in the early 1990s.
Not at that time,
But
regionally.
so you're bringing with your background kind of a more scientific approach, where I think I think some winemakers might consider themselves artists more than scientists, and some winemakers might be like, you almost picture Walter White in Breaking Bad in the lab. He took a scientific approach to mixing meth.
Yeah.
But
Not to compare wine and meth.
right. But yeah, no, it's so it's interesting, to think of the different ways you could approach it, using math and science as opposed to maybe, look and feel, I guess. And I suppose a good winemaker marriages all that.
I think you're right on point there. I think the best winemakers I know have elements of both. They're both artists, and they're willing to explore, and they have a scientific background as well. And an individual that can kind of marry those things, that's not afraid to explore and say, hey, what happens if I blend this with this?
Yeah.
That you're going to come upon something. And so I think the technician side of it and the artist side of it play equal roles in the best winemakers.
Yeah, it's what makes the wine industry so diverse and interesting too. No two harvests are the same, no two winemakers are the same, and there's so many different processes. So let's get into it here, and we'll learn a little bit more after we taste some of the wines about 6 Mile Creek and how you can visit them and what they got coming up. But let's taste some of the fruits of your labor here.
Yes, okay.
Why don't you lead us through?
Yeah, okay. So we have 4 wines and a spirit, and we're going to start with both one of my favorite grape varieties and one of my favorite wines. This is Seyval Blanc, and it's a dry hybrid. It's a dry wine. I love it as a grape because it is just disease resistant. It ripens early. We're some distance away from the lakeshore, so at 6 Mile Creek Vineyard, we really don't benefit much from the warming effect that the lake has on the climate. So what we have here is a nice citrusy. It's got a bit of fruit in the nose, and it's got a nice citrusy element, and it has a really nice sugar acid balance.
It is very balanced.
Well, it switch hits, although I think of this mostly as a wine that pairs well with food. You get some of that lemon in there. And in terms of pairing, which I was not very good at, I really had to work at pairing. I could pick up nuances and stuff. You see this big nose here. I have no problem getting my nose in a glass. But the elements of pairing wine with food, I had to work at a little bit. But for this, it's really easy. Think of anything that you might spritz a little lemon on,
Right.
mostly seafood, light
Seafood,
seafood,
chicken.
sole, chicken, it would pair well with. And in the summer, this is a good sipper. Bright.
Oh, absolutely.
It's really good.
The first taste is it's fruity and light, and then you get a little bit of the acidity, and then the taste lingers. It's beautiful.
I think it has a long finish,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And the taste lingers. You get that refreshing bit of acidity towards the end. I think it's a balance most winemakers try to strike, a sugar-acid balance. Yes,
Yep.
you have sweet wines. Yes, you have dry, soft, rich wines. But there's behind the scenes, there's always a sugar-acid balance that's important. And I think winemakers work to get there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see
great.
this a lot. This being something that a lot of people would like, even not necessarily fans of white wine, but that's delicious.
Yeah, Save-All
Yeah, it's a
is-
hybrid. It's a save-all.
Yeah.
It grows beautifully in the Finger Lakes. You go to any liquor store in the town where you're residing, and you're going to find in the Finger Lakes, you're going to find 20, 30, 40, 50 different Rieslings.
Mm-hmm.
But Save-All is one of those where there's not that much acreage planted to it. You might see 4 or 5 labels. So I encourage people, if you like this style, think a rich Pinot Grigio-ish, explore some of these hybrids. It's great.
Yeah, and this is what you're basically saying is that this grape is prone to the Finger Lakes in the same way a Riesling is, just maybe not as prominent because
Right.
there's not as much volume.
Yeah, it ripens earlier. It's disease-free. Growers love it. So.
And it's easy to pick because you don't have how many acres of it.
Right. Well, there's that. There's
About
that
2
too.
days worth of harvesting.
Yep.
It is
Yep.
delicious. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's move on here. What do we have next? The Ithaca Red?
Ithaca Red. Yes. So for us,
I've had this before.
you have.
I think I may have brought it on at some point in my few years of being here.
It's our best-selling wine. We make more of that than anything else. So the label doesn't tell you anything about what's in there, but I can. It's almost always 100% Marichal Foch. Some vintages, including that one, it's not vintage dated, but it's the last, so it's 2022 vintage. I add a little bit of Cabernet Franc to fill out the middle. It's kind of a gateway drug to reds for us.
Yes, it is.
I've
That's a good
used that
description.
a lot. So you're going to, it's strawberry predominates. It's just got a lot of strawberry in it. Definitely a lighter red. Think about a Beaujolais Nouveau. The grape
very light.
Beaujolais Nouveau is Gamay.
Very
This is
light.
Foch. They're very similar.
You kind of taste the strawberry. The strawberry's prominent.
It's
Yeah, it is.
prominent. The strawberry is really noteworthy in this. And light oak. You'll probably get a little bit of oak. I use oak chips on this particular wine. We want people to get into reds, so it's an easy drinking red. It's not as high in alcohol as some of the bigger reds like the one we're going to taste next. It has a hint of residual sugar. It's not bone dry, so it's not austere. It doesn't have tons of tannins. It has a little bit of tannin from those.
Yeah, it's not
French
sweet
oak
or
chips.
dry, but
Right.
it's sweet and dry.
Just a little.
Right, you're right.
Crazy.
So it's quaffable. It's easy drinking, and that's what it's designed to be for people that are they're with friends and they
Yeah.
want to try a red. Try the Ithaca Red.
It's not intimidating.
No, not at
Not
all.
at all.
Yep,
You
very
don't
good.
have to work to enjoy it.
No.
Very good.
Yeah, that is good.
I have to try some.
Yes, please.
Yeah, strawberry.
Yeah, it's a really good introduction to reds if you want to be a red drinker but are intimidated by those heavy cabs.
Yeah, this is by definition still a light red wine, but it's also dry.
Would you recommend drinking it cold or warm or either?
I think
You can do
either,
both.
yeah.
Room temperature typically for wines. This one will take a light chill.
Yeah, it tasted like it would almost enhance that strawberry though.
Absolutely.
So another wine, grape that's really starting to become more popular, and probably the most popular or one of the most popular reds in the region is Cab Franc.
Yes.
And so you have a Cab Franc here from 2022, your 6 Mile Creek Cab Franc.
Yes. I love working with Cabernet Franc, and one of the vinifera, one of the big reds that we can grow well in the region. I think about Pinot Noir, and it's tough to grow even where it grows well. It can be a tough go in the Finger Lakes, and I think we have learned what we can and can't do here. The Cabernet Franc ripens dependably. The last vintage was not great. season-wise, vintage-wise, weather-wise, and this one's sort of turning out to be kind of the same. But I love what's going on with this, and I love working with it. We got the Governor's Cup on a Cabernet Franc
Yep,
4
which is a
years ago
huge
or
deal
so, and that
for
was
red.
a big thing. It wasn't on a Riesling, it wasn't on a hybrid. We got the Governor's Cup in New York State here in the Finger Lakes. So I love it,
Yeah, this
and
is
I
great.
think this is turning out well, right?
A
It's
little
young.
leathery.
Yes. What do you get in the? What do you pick up in this?
Well, it's tough when we do this because we go from the lighter Fall Creek, or I forget the name, the
Ithaca Red.
Ithaca Red, to this Cab Franc, which is certainly a little bolder. And but the first thing I got was a little leathery.
It's definitely very dry in your mouth compared to
Yes.
the last one.
Yes.
Significantly so.
Yeah, but still light. Still light.
Yeah, light vintage. So light fruit. Not the fruit wasn't hugely ripe last year, and so we had to deal with that.
This would be great with a pasta. With a steak. Yeah, this is great. This is a really great standard Cab Franc.
Yeah, and not too much oak, right? I feel like in a light season, when I say we Finger Lakes winemakers have had to learn to deal with some things, it wouldn't be a virtue to over oak this. So you don't put this in wood for 18 months.
Right.
Balance, monitor your barrels carefully, because a lighter year, the fruit's there, it's pretty, but it's lighter. So don't bury it in oak, don't bury it in wood.
Yeah, it's almost like artificially trying to make what a dictionary definition red would be if you're trying to over oak
You're
it.
forcing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not meant to be. You got to pay attention to vintage here. Mm-hmm. And so just like winemakers try and make a sugar acid balance, there's also definitely, or there should be, flavor, intensity, oak balance.
So are
There's a
you
lot of
saying that
balance.
based on next year's vintage, you might say, geez, this needs more time in the oak?
Absolutely.
Okay.
100%.
Okay.
That's a science
interesting.
brain of yours.
Yeah.
Yep.
Kind of working that way.
Yep, absolutely. Yep. Shouldn't be cookie cutter recipe kind of thing.
Right.
Got to pay attention.
That is fabulous, and there has been, I think Buttonwood Grove makes a good Cab Franc that I enjoy. See that a lot around, yeah, it's becoming the predominant red grape of the Finger Lakes. I feel like.
They've kind of, by they I mean the winemakers, the vineyard crews are really figuring out how to make it work here.
Yes.
Like it took a while, obviously, but now
yeah.
it's getting there, and it's. I mean, you won the Governor's Cup for it, so that's proof that it's
Made me happy.
it's starting to rise above.
Made me very happy.
Made us all happy, yeah.
Okay, so let's move on now to something looks completely different here. Pasa Tiempo.
Pasa tiempo, or pass the time.
Right.
And yeah, one of our first, it's kind of a funny story, one of our first sweet wines. The original owner, Roger Battistaglia, he, by his own admission, he would say crusty Italian. He liked dry wines. He didn't like sweet wines, and he didn't make them. And
Oh, you
people
can smell it,
like
yeah.
sweet wines, so they'd come in and they'd leave, and they wouldn't buy anything, especially older folks or younger folks that really like sweet wines. And one day he came to Paul. He says, "Nobody's buying the wines. What's going on?" I said, "Roger, you don't like sweet wines, but we have to make some. You don't have to drink them, but we got to make one." This was our first one, Vignoles wine that's up around 4%, 4.5%, and again, sugar acid balance. You get a little honey, little pineapple notes, and sweet up front, but real palate cleansing acidity down the back.
It's not overly sweet, though.
Not
Like,
overly
the
sweet.
color makes you kind of think it might be because it's a darker yellow, but it's not, super sweet. This is one of my sister's favorites. She likes the few sweets you have at 6 Mile Creek a lot.
I call this a sipping wine.
Yeah.
This is definitely a deck wine or a dock wine, a summer wine. If
Beautiful.
you have a little cheddar cheese and crackers and this on a sunny day, maybe some fruit, it's spectacular.
Yeah, and I do taste the pineapple. There's something else
Right.
I'm getting here. A little apricot.
A little apricot in it. Some people with vignoles pick up grapefruit.
Yeah, that is delicious. It's not It's not grape juicy sweet.
No, it's not.
It's great. It's a great alternative to the Sauvignon Blanc. Yeah, and some people are crazy about the sweets. They turn their nose up at anything that's sweet, but I like it all. And sometimes I am in the mood for something sweet. And this is this is something you could, sometimes when I drink sweet wine, like after half a glass I'm done, but
Yes.
this feels like something that I could continue to drink and not, not be
Finish it.
overpowered by
Yeah.
the sweetness. But yeah, this is great.
Yeah, it's
Nice.
That's a tiempo.
it's also not intimidating. It's another non-intimidating
Another easy
sweet wine.
drinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think about sweetness, that sugar acid balance again. I keep coming back to it, but it's important. It's not like cough syrup sweet. It's not cloying.
Right.
It has
Yeah.
that freshness in the back.
Grapefruit. I've got the grapefruit
Yep.
of that last. I could
It's
definitely
like
get
lemonade.
the grapefruit.
Lemonades are incredibly sour, but you put enough sugar in there, and it's
Yeah.
refreshing. It's not cloying, and this has ethanol in it. That's the difference. I mean,
All right, well, let's shift gears now to a spirit here, and this was the Spirits by 6 Mile Creek Amore.
This smells amazing. I wish you guys could smell it.
Yeah,
while watching.
what is this?
okay, Amore. Well, Amore is an almond liqueur. So it's a amaretto, and
yeah.
we call it Amore. It's very Italian. There's an Italian slant on a number of our spirits.
There's not a lot of people that make this around here, is there?
There aren't.
Yeah.
You won't see too much of it, and so it's one of the harder ones to make. There's complex sugars and extracts.
Yeah, good
But
job
it's one of the
on
most versatile. It's one of our last spirits that we made, and it's also by far the best-selling. I mean, people come in, they say, I have to run the still almost every week now to keep this in
Well,
stock.
I do gotta
mean,
tell you,
it's
just great
crazy.
job. I mean,
Thank you.
sometimes within, like, let me taste another little.
You should pick up a couple of things should predominate. Because if it's an almond liqueur, you should get almond.
Get the almond,
That's
for
in the
sure.
forefront. There's some cherry in there, some
Yeah,
cherry
it's-
notes.
Yeah.
It's not too in your face. It doesn't taste too medical.
Right.
I guess like a lot of times the amaretto sometimes
It's
has
the
the
alcohol,
antiseptic
yeah.
type of, but this is very extremely smooth. I mean, I could sip on this while I have some ice cream sundae.
It is so versatile. I don't particularly like.
Cook with this.
You can cook with it. You bake with it.
I just thought about how I could put these in sugar cookies, and it'd probably
yes,
be amazing.
It would be fantastic. Put it in hot chocolate. Put it in some
Okay.
hot drinks.
I'll try it.
It's good in coffee. It's great in hot chocolate. And then drink it. Drink it at room temperature by the fire in a cold winter night.
Yeah.
But look up mixed drinks with amaretto, because amaretto sours. There's a bunch of them, and for people that find it a little too sweet, a sour mix or some other ways in which you can mix it. There are a ton of. I don't do too many of the mixed drinks, but look it up because you can use it so many different ways.
Yeah, I gotta tell you, I don't get too excited when we bring the hard liquor into the studio. I'm not a big. I'm not a big hard liquor guy. I'm not. Some of my friends are really into bourbon and.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But this is amazing. Well
Yeah.
done. Well
Thank
done.
you very much. Thank you.
You could almost sip it like a wine.
Yeah.
You can sip it.
Yeah.
You
Maybe
can
don't
sip.
drink as much. It's a much higher alcohol content.
Yeah, what's this here? 26%.
Yeah.
26% alcohol. But yeah, this is.
It's a really good dessert wine or dessert spirit. I
Yes,
guess. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, you really get like you say, you get that almond, you get what you expect from an amaretto without any type of bitter aftertaste or any feeling like you're, sipping on 100 proof whiskey. Or it's
Yeah, there's
really
not a lot of
smooth.
burn to it. I like the smooth. A lot of people key in on the smoothness of it, the richness of it.
I want to eat biscotti with it.
Yeah,
That's what I want.
Oh
really
yeah, that would be
badly.
good.
yeah, absolutely. That's fantastic. That is fantastic. So, yeah, nothing like powering through 5 different classes on a Wednesday morning.
Breakfast of champions.
Yeah.
Here we are.
But
Day drink if you don't start out early.
Right.
it was all fantastic. And you mentioned we did have some of the 22 vintage here. You harvesting 2023.
Yes.
We had the hard frost in the spring.
Oh yeah.
We had some dry weather, followed by wet weather, followed by pretty ideal harvesting conditions once we got through September. Give us an update on how things look at 6 Mile in terms of the harvest and the vintage.
Yeah. Okay. Well, our harvest is done.
Ooh, congratulations.
We didn't pick a grape, so it finished early. That freeze that we got, I think May 17th, if I'm remembering correctly, was really tough.
And you guys more than other people in the Finger Lakes?
Yes, although I went by boat to John Cupp's place, Thirsty Owl, a couple of months later to check with him and on things, and he has a wind machine to protect his vineyards.
Oh, wow.
And it started at 8 or 9 o'clock at night the night before, and he knew it was going to be a problem. But if you were in the southern half of the Finger Lakes and you didn't have any form of protection, you were bit by this. And being away from the lake, we lost, for example, what would have been our first Marquette, our first red on the property. I was so excited. About 1.5 tons worth of fruit hanging, we figured. $30,000 worth of product. The next morning I came over at 8 o'clock, and I looked down at the Marquette vineyard, and it was brown. There was nothing, there was not a green spot in the whole vineyard. And I just went back home, and I poured myself a glass of bourbon at 8 a.m. I said, okay, well, that's gone. So our season's good. We've had to buy more fruit, and we've had verbal contracts, and people have been really good. So it's been great. We're going to have some fantastic wine. We got more Cabernet Franc, I think, this year than we ever got because we begged and pleaded, and it's going to be great. So we're heavy into winemaking now. Almost every tank is full. I'm going to have to start digging holes, I think, to put wine juice in to ferment. But it's going to be a good season because we all come together in the Finger Lakes.
Yeah,
I love it.
Camaraderie. Yep.
So, like the Marquette vines that were damaged by the frost, are they gone?
No. So all the fruit is gone.
But
all
next
of the green
year
was gone. But
Okay.
their vines,
Yeah.
the crowns, most important part really in terms of winter survival and damage like this, their vines, and they're pretty robust, and we'll have a reduced crop next year. But we'll have a crop.
Okay.
Yep.
So
Yep.
it
And all
was-
the other things, Safeval, Cayuga that we grow on the property, no problem.
Yeah.
We lost fruit. It's not that we didn't get fruit. It wasn't worth picking, really. There was so little of it.
Yeah.
But the vines are healthy, and so we'll have lots of fruit.
And hope for better spring next year.
Yes, that's what we're hoping. Yeah.
Well, one last thing before we get out of here. You have the 6 Mile Creek is interesting in that you have an old barn, a 19th century Dutch colonial style
Yeah.
barn for the winery. Just talk a little bit about what's going on there. If anybody's looking to stop in this weekend or through November,
Yes.
what's going on at 6 Mile?
We love the barn. We're open 7 days a week. I tell people that, well, we don't really ever close. And the former manager said, what are you talking about? He says, we don't ever close.
just
we
like
close
three holidays, yeah.
3 or 4 days a year. So we're always open. So, and it's nice. I mean, people sometimes just have weekends, but it's definitely slower during the week. So I tell people all the time, stop by when you can. We're open 10 to 6. There's slightly reduced winter hours, like we delay our opening till 11 on some days. But we're always open, and we have a nice deck, and there are days even in the winter you can go out on the deck. But
Sure.
yeah, it's a nice barn. I like the feel there, and it's fun. I live next door, so I walk to work every day, and
Oh, nice.
it's just a lovely place to visit. We got cheese and crackers, and not a lot of food, but some snacky things that would pair well with wines. And yeah, come check us out.
Will they ever see you behind the counter pouring wine?
Yes,
Okay.
I do get behind the counter. Not that much.
Yeah.
So there's a
There's a chance.
something has happened, but yeah, and more in the winter.
Yeah.
More in the winter, I'm up there, but people know they can say, "Oh, is Paul here?" And they'll walk down sometimes, and
Say hello.
I'm there all the time in one part of the building. That's for sure.
Well, that's great. Cayuga Lake Wine Trail in general, anything going on? It's Halloween weekend.
On Sunday, we have Trick or Treat along the trail. Each winery is pairing a wine with a Halloween candy, complimentary with your purchase of a tasting or flight. Yep. And then we don't have much going on until holiday shopping spree in November, which is actually right around the corner. It's wild that it is, but
Yeah, no, a few
Yeah.
days away here. A week from now, it will be November, right?
yeah, Wednesday is November.
Well, weather's great this week, And looking ahead to the weekend, looks like Friday's going to be partly sunny with a high near 73, although the wind will be picking up overnight Friday. It's only going to get down to 62 overnight,
Wow.
which is kind of crazy for this time of year. Now things start to change. Saturday, still a nice day, mostly cloudy with a high near 67, a breezy, and a chance of showers in the early morning and evening. Saturday night, mostly cloudy with a low of around 48, and then Sunday, really, you'll notice a big change. It'll be rainy day, 80% chance of rain, high near 52, and then when we head back to work on Monday, more rain and a high of only 49. I think that's the first day so far where we have the high is not projected to get into the 50s. So nothing to be surprised about. Also doesn't mean it's the end of things. We certainly, the 2 weekends from now, we could find ourselves with some pleasant weather too. We've had some pretty good Novembers in the past several years here. So, so early part of the weekend looks good. Sunday don't look so great this weekend, but
the wineries are open, even if it's raining. So that's
yeah,
the
no,
best way to go.
I like going to the wineries on a rainy day sometimes more than a sunny day, just because there might be a little lower crowds, and what else you gonna do on a rainy day?
Right. It's cozy.
Yeah,
I think it's great, and that's right. We're looking to interact with people. You might have more time with the tasting room staff, or maybe even the winemaker once in a
Right.
while.
Or
And
even
that's
the
nice.
owner, maybe.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly right.
Yep.
I always say go in the winter or even those weekdays because you might get the owner or the winemaker. And how cool is that?
Yeah.
To get your tasting by them,
yeah, it always is.
Yeah.
Whenever I go to a winery and they say, "Oh, this is the owner," it's always like, "Oh, wow, this is get a little insight
You
here."
feel really special.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But, well, Paul, thanks for coming in. Thanks for bringing the products. I'm certainly impressed by the wide variety and the quality. There's something for all 5 of these things. There's an application form in my household, I think. You know what I mean?
Well, that's really good to hear.
That's good.
And really, the amaretto was probably the most pleasantly surprising because I'm usually not a spirits guy, and that is something could see myself, like you say, cozy up to a fire,
Yeah.
sip on it, and just fantastic. So congratulations on your success, and we'll look forward to future vintages from 6 Mile Creek.
Thank you. Thanks.
And Katherine, thanks again for
You're welcome.
setting everything up, coming in. We'll see you in a month.
Yep.
It'll be.
End of November.
Yeah, it might have to go a week early. I'm going away Thanksgiving weekend this
I think
year.
it's the week
this year.
after.
Is it the week
I think
after?
so, yeah.
Okay, so we'll be good.
Yeah, we'll be good.
All right,
We'll
well,
figure it out.
and thanks you everybody for joining us. If you enjoyed the show, click like, share, and subscribe. We'll be back next Wednesday. Until then, have a great last weekend of October right here in the Finger Lakes.
Finger Lakes Wine.